Welcome back, my rune weavers. Now we're going to have another look at the Jotunn, this time by going very specifically at probably the most famous of them all, Loki, Odin's blood brother, the mischievous trickster of the gods, who we could probably give entire videos about and still not even scratch the surface of what they were up to. And of course, Loki's children. We'll look at them too. Jormungandr, Hel, Fenrir, and Nalfi. Loki, Loki, Loki. Odin's blood brother, Thor's valued companion, instigator of Baldur's death, trickster, flighty one, get her into trouble and get her out of trouble, father of godslayers, mother of the great Sleipnir, known by many kennings, source of so many adventures within the Eddas. There's a lot that can be said about Loki, but perhaps the most important thing to know about Loki in this day and age is he is probably one of the most complicated and controversial deities in the Norse pantheon. This, despite the fact that Odin could be just as deceitful, that Hodor's deeds caused Baldur's death, and Baldur's own cockiness certainly played a role. Not even the various nasty things he said about the Aesir in the Lokasana were necessarily lies, just unpleasant truths. Unpleasant truths that gods don't like to hear at the best of times. And that was definitely not the best of times. There are many heathens and Norse pagans who refuse to worship him, and there are others who find comfort and meaning in his worship. Among the LGBTQ community, his gender fluidity makes him a valued and beloved god. The book pictured here, Bloodbound, a Loki devotional, has many of their stories. In a play I wrote and put on some years back, where we acted out the story of Thrym stealing Thor's hammer, I acted in the part of Loki. When we, Thor and I, had the scenes where we were disguised as Freya and her handmaiden, I had the hilarious position of playing a gender fluid but mostly male Loki, playing a woman while being a woman. That seems very Lokian to me and appropriate. If you are drawn to Loki and you don't know about it already, I highly recommend this book, which is full of stories and poems, and another play very similar to that one. Another point I wish to raise regarding Loki circles back to the story of the first humans that I told in the earlier Rune Lore video. Odin gave the living breath, symbolized by Onsus, but his brother Ve gave the humans their senses and their appearance. Ve is, quite possibly, another name for Loki. In another version of the story, it is Lodr, who also might be another name for Loki, who was the one who gave that gift. While Loki is seldom described in the old lore, he is definitely attractive and cunning, full of trickery, and most importantly, he is a shape changer. He can be a horse, a salmon, a bird, a flea, a giantess, whatever form and shape both suits his needs and his desires, he is. And I'm using he here because that is, of course, the conventional way of referring to Loki. But just know, I could probably just as easily and maybe more comfortably use the word they as Loki's pronoun because Loki is not just male or just female. Loki is about as gender fluid as it gets. They can best be understood as the personification of change. Loki's competitor in the story of Utgard Loki, Loki, fire, is possibly related to him. Note the similarity in the names. Fire is both life giving and dangerous, never the same from one moment to the next. And fire is the conveyor of knowledge and hidden secrets from one generation to the next. Just think of how often and how easily we tell stories to one another while we are gathered around a campfire. And to top it off, many Lokian UPGs, according to Bloodbound, show Loki as a redhead. This tie to fire, the gift giving to humans, the eternal punishment which comes to him after Baldur's death, all make me think of another god in another pantheon altogether, but another Indo-European one at that. I am thinking, of course, of the Greek Prometheus, the giver of fire of humanity, who was chained to a rock, just as Loki was chained. Prometheus, who had an eagle eating his liver, while Loki was punished with snakes dripping poison, which his wife Sigyn had to try and catch to save it from falling on him. Though in Loki's case, I think makes matters worse when you realize that those bindings were made out of the body of his son, Nalfi. Let me close here with a reading for you all from Bloodbound, wherever my cat knocked that book. Here we go. My cat's been jumping on and off my lap all night, and so things have gotten a bit knocked around because, of course, she is testing gravity, and she is a daughter of Sekhmet, and that means she does whatever she wants, kind of like Loki does. This poem is called For Loki by Oliver Leon Porter. O torchlighter God, weave us a web of words to bring joy and laughter. Wayfinder, may your torch lead us to hearth and home. Son of Farbauti and Laufi, son of lightning and leaves, you make family of misfits and comrades of trans people. So too may we have welcoming arms. Ferocious flame hair, you embody change and cycle, switching from male to female too, so we may delight in fabulous shifts. Husband to Sigyn, you survive under her bowl. May we hold any poison with great caution and be so committed to love. You are Odin's benchmate. May our friendships be so firm and our drinking horn be full of laughter. Sacred shifter, gender changer, joy of our hearts, bless us with energy in the long fight for transgender rights. Shapeshifter, may the forms we inhabit be bright like you. Horse mother, may we ride forth with friends. Snake father, may there be no false tongues here. Death father, may there be transformation here. Wolf father, may we be released from our bonds. Bless us with inspiration. Bless us with battle gladness. May the games we play honor you. May our doors be ever open to you, even when others turn you away. May the trickster God be welcome in our hearts. Hail, Loki. I feel, especially with Loki, given how controversial and questionable many heathens feel about him, it's best to describe his worship in the words of the Lokians themselves. Let us now move on to Sleipnir, the best of all horses. And this is my little Sleipnir, who usually can be found guarding the door to my condo, but who in this picture we thought that putting him by uh, the Viking ship tapestry on the wolf blanket was more appropriate. Sleipnir is the only one of Loki's children who has Loki for a mother, not for a father. The way this came about is one of my favorite stories, and I will definitely tell it in full in one of these videos. For now, just know that Loki got the gods into trouble by encouraging them to fork over the sun, moon, and Freya in exchange for getting a wall built around Asgard in a single season, and on the last evening before the wall would be finished and they'd have to pay up, Loki had to get them out of it. The Jotun doing the work had a huge stallion named Sveldfari, and by some strange chance, a beautiful mare came galloping by that night and lured the stallion away. Loki was not seen again for many months, and when he came back, there was an 8-legged gray colt at his heels. Odin was so delighted with this little horse that Loki gave him to Odin, and so Sleipnir became Odin's horse. Sleipnir has many magical gifts, riding on his 8 legs. He can travel between the worlds on his own power, something not even the gods and goddesses of Asgard can do without magic falcon cloaks or the Bifrost, for example. Sleipnir is a psychopomp, a being which can carry others between the worlds too, even to the land of the dead, his half-sister's realm of Helheim. His rune is Awaz, the horse rune, a rune of partnership and cooperation. He is described in the lore as the greatest of all horses. If you do trance work or work with Awaz and accept his magic as a partnership, a mutual respect, and never of control, he can carry the satyr worker across the branches of Yggdrasil. And of all Loki's children, he remains, and more importantly, is allowed to remain faithful to the Aesir to the end, facing off against his brother Fenrir with Odin at the end of all things, Ragnarok. So don't let it ever be said that all of Loki's children turned against the gods, because Sleipnir's mother was Loki. Jormungandr. Thor and the Midgard serpent are long-standing foes throughout the lore. When Loki's 3 children with Angrboda are brought to Asgard, Jormungandr, the huge snake, did not get a very warm welcome. His immense size frightened the gods, so Odin threw him by the tail off the end of the world and into the sea surrounding Midgard. There, Jormungandr continued to grow and grow as a huge serpent living beneath the waves until he was so big that his head and his tail encircled the world. During a fateful fishing expedition, he encounters Thor on a boat, and the two face off. Jormungandr tries to capsize the boat, and Thor is determined to fight to the bloody end, but Hymir, the Jotun, cuts the fishing line so they can escape. This scene is immortalized, as you can see here, on the Altuna runestone in Uppland, Sweden, and in a few other stone depictions, as well as in Snorri's Eddas. They have two other confrontations over time. One is when Thor is in Utgard competing to see if he can lift Utgard Loki's cat off the ground. The cat is actually the Midgard serpent. And because it is so huge, it wraps around the entire world. When he pulls on Jormungandr, he actually causes earthquakes. And the third and final encounter, of course, is at Ragnarok, where Jormungandr goes to Asgard, battles the gods, and kills and is killed by Thor at the end of the world. So, yes, of all the children of Loki, Jormungandr is probably one of the less friendly, but at the same time, he wasn't really given much of a chance, though he was still given more of a chance than his brother, Fenrir, who we'll come to shortly. Hel, the middle child of Angrboda and Loki, I think at least, is Loki's only daughter and presumably Angrboda's only daughter too. Arguably, she gets the best deal of her full siblings because she more or less gets to choose her fate. Half corpse, half beautiful woman, the living gods of Asgard were both repulsed and terrified by her. To those who are alive, she is a reminder of mortality and death. But to the dead, she is the kind soul who cares for them and wishes them well. So Odin decreed that she should be sent to Niflheim, and there she could have her own realm for the dead who were not otherwise claimed. Her threshold is called Stumbling Block. It is guarded by her hound, Garm, a massive dog who is often associated with Fenrir and who is also called the best of all hounds. Her plate is called Hunger, and her knife is called Starving. While gloomy and cold, being located, of course, in the icy realm of Niflheim, it is not a place of punishment. Helheim is where the dead go when they have nowhere else to go, and there they are looked after by the goddess of the dead, who loves and treats them all and wants nothing but the best for them. Hel even is willing to let Balder go if everyone in the world weeps for him, because she doesn't see them as her prisoners, but as her people. But of course, it is said that she does join her siblings at Ragnarok, leading. I don't believe it's going to be all the dead. Maybe some of the dead, but I don't think it's going to be all the dead. That's just me. Fenrir, the mighty wolf, bound until the end times. Fenrir was just a wolf cub when Odin ordered him, his brother, and their sister to Asgard. At first, Odin, the wolf lover, was willing to let the young wolf stick around, although as he grew bigger and bigger, eventually only Tyr was willing to feed him or go near him. Unfortunately for Fenrir, he was the one who the prophecy fated to kill Odin. Tyr, the god of justice and righteousness, could possibly have continued to have a good influence on the young wolf, who was certainly no enemy of the gods at that time. But Odin feared his own death. Odin feared the huge wolf with the big appetite, and tried repeatedly to have him tied up, while claiming they were merely testing the wolf's strength. Fenrir, playful and young, believed them when they said it was all a game. But finally, a thin band was forged by the dwarves out of the noise of a cat's footsteps, the beard of a woman, the roots of a mountain, the sinews of a bear, the breath of a fish, and the spit of a bird. This time, even Fenrir suspected a trick when he looked at the thin and fragile seeming cords. He demanded the gods agree if he could not escape, they would untie him. To make sure of this, one of them would have to put his hand in his mouth, but Fenrir promised he wouldn't bite unless he wasn't freed. Tyr, his good friend, agreed. So Fenrir let the gods bind him so tightly that even as he tried to thrash his way free, the bonds only got tighter and tighter until he couldn't move. Fenrir begged the gods to let him free, but they only laughed at him. And so, knowing he'd been betrayed, he bit off Tyr's hand. And when they dropped a boulder and tried to wedge him there so he couldn't even move or escape or wiggle, he tried to bite them. Until the god stuck a sword through his mouth so he couldn't even close his jaws. And there he stayed, drool falling from his open mouth, forming a river, for all eternity until Ragnarok. On that day, he sets free to avenge his long imprisonment and suffering, with only one goal in mind, the goal that condemned him, Odin's death. Fenrir's story, I think, reflects the difficulty in defining Loki and his children as the bad guys, and Odin and the Aesir as the good guys. Odin's fear of the prophecy drove him to bind Fenrir, thinking he could escape. Fenrir, who had done nothing wrong, and who may, under other circumstances, have been a friend to the gods, was turned against them by Odin's own fear. Like a lot of people who are wrongly accused and hurt, and who have been hurt for a long time, Fenrir turns into the monster by the end of his story. And at the end of his story, yes, he does kill Odin at Ragnarok when the world ends before it is reborn. But I think it's also worth remembering when we talk about him that it didn't have to be that way. It's possible there could have been another way. And that, my friends, is why empathy matters. And then we have Nalfi, the most obscure of Loki's children. Snorri cannot even seem to keep him and his supposed brother Vali straight, because Vali is also the god who is born and avenges his brother Balder and is the son of Odin. The line where Vali is called Loki's son turned into a wolf and kills him is probably a transcription error or just Snorri being confused. Nalfi is not a nice god. He is the son of Sigyn and Loki. He is cunning, tricky, and doesn't have Loki's charms to make up for it. His child, Naut, is the goddess of night. When the gods decide to bind Loki in retribution, Nalfi is killed by a wolf, who is, of course, not his brother Vali, but it's not exactly clear then who does kill him. Maybe it's his brother Fenrir, maybe it's a different wolf. I mean, there's Jerry and Freki, they're both wolves. Who knows? Unfortunately, because of the transcription error or Snorri's confusion, there's no clear explanation of who. The end result, though, is clear enough, and it's almost sickening in its brutality. Loki is bound up with the sinews of his dead son. So, those are Loki and their children. Now, stay tuned for more runic cosmology. Like I explained in the video on the Jotunn, my coming down with a cold this month has delayed all of my work by a week. So it's going to be another week before we get the ancient deities of Germania. Uh, but stay tuned. It will come out probably next weekend. And until then, enjoy your rune weaving, my friends.